I watched two private investigators walk through the door of my grandmother's 80th birthday party, carrying a thick evidence folder. My sister Caroline had hired them to prove my tech startup was fake and humiliate me in front of our entire family. For 6 months, Shed mocked my business venture, calling me a fraud and a failure. Shed told everyone I was lying about everything. But as the investigators approached, I noticed something strange. They weren't looking at me. They were walking straight toward Caroline, and one of them was holding handcuffs. Let me take you back 6 months to where this nightmare began. I'm James, 28 years old, and until that spring, I'd been the responsible one in our family. The safe one. The boring one, if you ask my sister. I'd spent 5 years working as an accountant at Henderson & Associates, a mid-sized firm in Portland. Decent salary, health insurance, a retirement plan. Everything my mother said constituted a real career. Then I quit. I left to start my own software company. Not some vague dream, but a real business with a real purpose. My best friend Tyler runs a small contracting business, and for years I'd watched him struggle with project management software. Everything on the market was designed for massive construction companies with dedicated IT departments. Tyler needed something simple, affordable, intuitive, so I decided to build it. I called it BuildTrack, a project management tool specifically for small construction companies. Scheduling, budget tracking, client communications, all in one place. I spent 3 months developing a prototype, talking to contractors, refining the concept. I invested my entire savings, $32,000, into making this real. My girlfriend Amy, a third-grade teacher with the patience of a saint, supported me completely. She believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. My mother was nervous but tried to be encouraging. My father, who divorced my mother when I was 12 and moved to California, sent a cautious email saying he hoped I knew what I was doing. But Caroline, my 32-year-old sister, the golden child, the successful real estate agent with the luxury car and the downtown Seattle condo, she laughed in my face. It happened at a family dinner at Mom's house in suburban Portland. Mom had made pot roast, trying to create a nice evening. Caroline drove down from Seattle for the weekend, and I'd been excited to tell everyone about BuildTrack. I brought my laptop, ready to show them the interface. Caroline took one look at my presentation and said, "So you threw away a real career to build an app? James, there are a million project management tools already. What makes you think anyone wants yours?" I tried to explain the niche market, the specific needs of small contractors. She interrupted me. "This is a midlife crisis," she announced, sipping her wine. "You're 28, freaking out about your future, and instead of dealing with it like an adult, you're playing tech entrepreneur." My mother said quietly, "Caroline, that's not fair." Caroline turned to Mom. "I'm being realistic. James has never taken a risk in his entire life. Now suddenly he's a businessman? I don't buy it." The words stung because part of them was true. I had always played it safe. Caroline was the bold one, the confident one. She'd been selling real estate since she was 24, working her way up in a competitive market. She drove a BMW, wore designer clothes, posted photos from expensive restaurants on social media. She was everything I wasn't. Over the next few months, Caroline's skepticism turned into something darker. She started making comments at every family gathering. When I mentioned signing my first client, she said, "Really? Who?" When I said it was a small company in Gresham, she said, "How convenient that none of us can verify that." At a barbecue at Mom's house in early summer, things exploded. Tyler was there with his wife. Caroline cornered him by the grill and started asking pointed questions about whether my software actually worked, whether he was just being a nice friend, whether I'd paid him to pretend to be a client. Tyler told me later, his face uncomfortable, "Man, your sister basically accused me of lying for you." It was weird, but the real turning point came that same afternoon. Caroline had been drinking, and she suddenly stood up on the back porch and announced to the whole family, "I need to say something. I don't think James has any real clients. I think he's making this all up. Maybe he's in debt, maybe he's gambling. I don't know. But something's not adding up. And I'm going to get to the bottom of this because I care about our family's reputation." The backyard went silent. My mother looked horrified. My cousin Brian, a 19-year-old college kid, stared at his plate. Amy grabbed my hand under the table. I stood up, my face burning. You think him scamming everyone? You think him lying about my own business? Caroline met my eyes, hers cold and hard. I think you're scared and desperate, and you're creating an elaborate story rather than admitting you made a mistake quitting your job. Prove me wrong, James. Show us all the proof. I should have walked away. Instead, I said, I don't owe you proof of anything. This is my life, not yours. She smiled, a smile I'd never seen before. Then I guess we'll see what the truth is, won't we? That was when the war truly began. That was when Caroline decided that destroying my credibility wasn't just an opinion. It was a mission. 2 weeks after the barbecue, I got a strange phone call from my former colleague, Sandra, at Henderson and Associates. She sounded awkward. Hey, James, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your sister called the office yesterday. She talked to Daniel in HR. She was asking about why you really left, whether you'd been fired, if there were any issues with your performance or ethics. My stomach dropped. What did Daniel tell her? He said he couldn't discuss former employees. But James, why is your sister calling your old job? I had no good answer. I hung up and immediately called Tyler. He answered on the second ring. Did Caroline contact you again? I asked. Yeah, man. 3 days ago. She called my business number, said she was your sister, and she was worried about you. She asked if BuildTrack was real, if it actually functioned, if I was really paying you, or if you were paying me to pretend. I told her it was none of her business, and hung up. I should have told you sooner. My hands were shaking. Caroline wasn't just doubting me at family dinners anymore. She was actively investigating me, reaching out to people in my life, trying to build a case that I was a liar. That night, my mother called. Her voice was strained. James, honey, I need to tell you something. Caroline started a family group chat. You're not in it. She's been messaging everyone, your aunts, your cousins, even your father. Shay's saying Shay's concerned about you, that you're being secretive, that she thinks you might be in financial trouble. What? The word came out strangled. She thinks you might be gambling or in debt, and you made up the business story as a cover. She's been asking people if you've asked them for money, if you've been acting strange. I felt like the walls were closing in. Mom, I'm not in debt. I'm not gambling. My business is real. I have 4 paying clients now. I hired a part-time developer named Marcus. This is actually working. I know, sweetheart. I believe you. But Caroline is very convincing. She's very worried, or at least she says she is. Why had I kept the business so quiet? I realized now it was because Id wanted to wait until I had undeniable success before announcing it. Id wanted to avoid exactly this: the scrutiny, the doubt, the need to prove myself to people who should have just trusted me. A few days later, my cousin Brian called me. Has a good kid, studying engineering at Portland State. He sounded nervous. James, I have to tell you something. Caroline asked me to keep an eye on you. She offered to pay me $100 to report back if you said anything about money problems or seemed stressed. She what? I told her no. I'm not spying on you, but I thought you should know. I confronted Caroline by phone that evening. She answered cheerfully, like nothing was wrong. Caroline, you need to stop, I said, trying to keep my voice level. You're calling my old job, interrogating my friends, recruiting family members to spy on me. This is insane. I'm protecting our family, she said calmly. If you're telling the truth, you have nothing to worry about. I shouldn't have to prove anything to you. Then don't. But Grandma's 80th birthday party is in 3 months. I think that'll be a good time for some honesty, don't you? There was something ominous in her tone. What does that mean? It means the truth always comes out, little brother. See you then. She hung up. What Caroline didn't know was that my business was actually succeeding. BuildTrack had 4 clients. Tyler's company, a roofing business in Beaverton, a small remodeling outfit in Lake Oswego, and a plumbing company in Hillsborough. Monthly recurring revenue of $6,000. Not enough to make me rich, but enough to prove the concept worked. Id hired Marcus, a talented developer. Id met through a tech meetup, to help me add features and improve the interface. Amy told me to just show Caroline my bank statements, my client contracts, proof that this was real, but I refused on principle. Why should I have to bear my financial life to my sister just because Shed decided I was a liar? Where was the trust? Where was the family loyalty? I was working from a coffee shop near my apartment when I received an anonymous email. No subject line, no message, just 5 photo attachments. I opened them with a sense of dread. The photos showed me meeting with a client outside a building in Beaverton, working on my laptop at a different coffee shop, having lunch with Marcus at a Thai restaurant, walking to my car. Someone had been following me, photographing me. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. She was building some kind of case against me, planning some kind of public confrontation at our grandmother's birthday party. Amy found me that night sitting in the dark in our apartment. She turned on the light and sat beside me. What happened? I showed her the photos, told her about the call. She wrapped her arms around me. This has to stop, she said. You need to do something. But what could I do? Caroline was my sister. Our family was already fractured from our parents' divorce years ago. If I escalated this, if I fought back publicly, would I just be proving her right that there was drama to hide? I didn't know the answer, but I knew that in 3 months, at Grandma Helen's 80th birthday party, something terrible was going to happen. I found out the details from my mother, who found out from our Aunt Linda, who somehow heard it from Caroline herself. My sister had hired a private investigation firm, not just a single investigator taking a few photos, but an actual licensed firm, Pacific Insight Investigations, based in Seattle. Cost $3,000 for what Caroline called a comprehensive background and activity report. $3,000. Caroline had spent $3,000 to investigate her own brother. My mother called me, her voice thin and worried. James, she's telling people she's doing this for everyone's protection. She says she has a bad feeling about your career change, that it doesn't make sense, that she needs to know the truth before it's too late. Too late for what? I asked, exhausted. I don't know, honey. I don't understand what she thinks she's going to find. Neither did I. But the knowledge that professional investigators were digging through my life made me feel sick. What would they find? I hadn't done anything wrong, but everyone has things they'd rather keep private. Would they talk to my ex-girlfriend from college who had had a messy breakup with? Would they find out about the speeding ticket I got last year? Would they misinterpret something innocent and make it look suspicious? Marcus, my part-time developer, was worried for a different reason. He called me one afternoon, his voice tense. James, man, I need to tell you something. I've got a possession charge from 5 years ago. Marijuana. It's legal now, but it's still on my record. If someone's investigating you and they look at who you're working with, they might make it look bad. It's fine, I assured him, though I wasn't sure. You haven't done anything wrong. You're a great developer. But privately, I worried. Would Caroline twist that detail, present it as evidence that I was involved with criminals or making poor choices? I decided to consult a lawyer. I found Patricia Gomez, an attorney who specialized in business law and personal disputes. Her office was in a modest building in downtown Portland. She listened to my story, taking notes. Your sister's actions are legal, she said finally. Morally questionable, but legal. However, if she spreads false information based on this investigation, you could potentially have a defamation case. The bigger concern is whether this damages your business reputation. Can I stop her? From investigating you? No. From publicly defaming you at a family party? That's trickier. You could send a cease and desist letter, but that might escalate things. My advice? Document everything. Keep records of all communication. If she crosses a legal line, well, have evidence. It wasn't the reassurance it hoped for. The stress was affecting everything. Amy and I had our first serious fight. She thought I should just give up BuildTrack, get a regular job again, remove the source of conflict with Caroline. I told her I couldn't let my sister bully me into abandoning my dreams. We didn't speak for 2 days, an agonizing silence in our small apartment. My mother called again, crying this time. James, please, just show Caroline your business records. Show her you're telling the truth. I can't take this fighting anymore. Our family is falling apart. I shouldn't have to prove myself to her, I said, but my voice cracked. I was tired. So tired. Then something strange happened that made everything worse and, eventually, better. I checked my business bank account one morning and saw a security alert. Attempted unauthorized access, but her voice had a strange defensive edge, like she'd been caught. Caroline, this is illegal. If you keep doing this, I will press charges. You're paranoid, James. You're seeing threats everywhere because you know your lies are catching up to you. She hung up. I sat there, my mind racing. If Caroline was desperate enough to try to access my bank account, what else had she done? What else was she planning? For the first time since this nightmare began, I decided to look into Caroline's life. It'd been so focused on defending myself that I hadn't thought to question her. But now I started paying attention. I looked at her social media, her real estate business website. I started asking subtle questions of family members about how she was doing, what deals she'd closed recently. And I noticed something odd. 2 months earlier, Caroline had posted on Facebook about closing a landmark commercial real estate deal worth $2 million. She'd posted a photo of herself in front of a building in downtown Seattle, beaming, holding a sold sign. The caption read, "Another dream delivered," representing excellence in commercial real estate. But when I searched for the property address in public records, I couldn't find any recent sale. The building she'd posed in front of was listed as still available on multiple real estate websites. The ownership records showed no transfer. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe the sale was pending. Maybe it was under a different listing. Maybe I just didn't know how to read commercial real estate records properly. But a seed of doubt had been planted in my mind. My sister, who was so obsessed with proving I was a liar, might have posted a fake success of her own. I was still thinking about this, still unsure what it meant, when I received a thick envelope 1 week before our grandmother's party. It was delivered to my apartment by courier. The return address said Pacific Insight Investigations, but it wasn't addressed to Caroline. It was addressed to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter on professional letterhead, signed by someone named Janet Reeves, lead investigator. The letter read, "Mr. James Whitman, during the course of an investigation commissioned by your sister, Carolyn Whitman, we uncovered information that we are legally and ethically obligated to share with you. Your sister provided us with false information about you and made claims that constitute potential fraud on her part. We have terminated our contract with Miss Whitman effective immediately. We do not assist clients who provide false pretenses or who may themselves be engaged in illegal activity. Enclosed are copies of documents we discovered regarding your sister's business activities during our routine background check on her, which is standard procedure when a client engages our services. We recommend you consult with legal counsel regarding these materials. We apologize for any distress this investigation may have caused you. Our findings regarding you showed no evidence of fraud, deception, or illegal activity. You appear to be operating a legitimate small business in good faith. Sincerely, Janet Reeves, lead investigator, Pacific Insight Investigations." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I pulled out the stack of documents underneath the letter, and I began to read the truth about my sister's life. The first document was a summary report, 3 pages long, detailing what the investigators had found. I read it twice, then 3 times, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Caroline had been running a real estate fraud scheme for at least 18 months. The scheme worked like this. Caroline would approach potential buyers, individuals, or small business owners looking for commercial property. She'd tell them she had exclusive access to high-value properties that weren't officially on the market yet. Properties about to be listed, insider deals, once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. She'd show them photos, fake listing sheets, fabricated property details. Then she'd ask for a good faith deposit, anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000, depending on the supposed value of the property. She'd promise these deposits would be held in escrow and would go toward the purchase price once the deal closed. But the properties were fake. Either they didn't exist, or they'd already been sold, or Caroline had no legal authority to represent them. The deposits went straight into Carolyn's personal accounts. No escrow, no real deals, just theft. The investigators had found evidence of at least 11 victims. The total estimated fraud, over $170,000. $170,000, stolen from people who trusted her. I read the names of the victims, ordinary people trying to invest in their futures. Hank Nguyen, owner of a Vietnamese restaurant, who'd given Caroline $15,000 for a guaranteed commercial kitchen space in downtown Seattle. The space was never available. Dorothy and Paul Stevens, a retired couple, who'd lost $12,000 on a fake industrial warehouse investment. Caroline had created elaborate fake documents, contracts with forged signatures, fabricated LLC names, fraudulent escrow account statements. She'd built an entire infrastructure of lies. The report noted that 3 victims had already filed complaints with the Washington State Department of Licensing. An investigation was underway, though it had been slow because real estate fraud cases are complex and require significant evidence. But Janet Reeves and her firm had found that evidence. They'd stumbled onto it while running a routine financial background check on Caroline, which they did for all clients to verify payment ability and avoid being used as part of a scam themselves. What they found alarmed them enough that they'd contacted the Real Estate Division of Washington State's Department of Licensing. They'd also flagged the case for potential criminal prosecution. The final page of the report noted, "Subject Caroline Whitman appears to have commissioned this investigation of her brother as a deflection tactic, possibly to create a narrative that would distract from her own illegal activities should they come to light. Subject shows signs of narcissistic behavior and projection." I sat on my couch, the documents spread around me, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My sister was a criminal, not in some abstract white-collar way. She'd stolen from real people, a restaurant owner, a retired couple, working people who'd scraped together thousands of dollars for a chance at something better. And she'd been planning to stand up at our grandmother's birthday party and publicly accuse me of being a fraud. Amy came home from work and found me still sitting there, surrounded by papers. She read through them, her hand over her mouth. "Oh my God, James, this is serious. This is prison time serious." I called Patricia Gomez, my lawyer. I read her the summary report over the phone. She was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "This is felony fraud, wire fraud, theft by deception, forgery. If the state prosecutor gets involved, your sister could be looking at significant prison time. Have you contacted the police?" "Not yet. The investigators already contacted the state licensing board. You should report this to law enforcement directly. This isn't just a civil matter, James. Your sister has committed serious crimes. I thought about our grandmother's party, now only 6 days away. Caroline had told me she was planning something special. She'd hired a videographer," she'd said in her last text. "She was going to present the investigation report publicly and humiliate me in front of the entire family. But she had no idea that the investigators had turned on her. She had no idea that she wasn't holding a weapon against me but against herself." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Amy, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with impossible emotions. Part of me felt vindicated. I wasn't the liar. She was. Part of me felt sick. My sister, the person I'd grown up with, who I'd looked up to as a child, was a thief. And part of me felt sad, because I understood now what had driven her to this. Caroline had always needed to be the successful one, the impressive one. When I'd quit my safe job to take a risk, something she'd never been brave enough to do herself, it had threatened her identity. So she'd tried to destroy me to protect herself. And when that wasn't enough, when her insecurity kept eating at her, she'd started stealing, creating a fake version of success because she couldn't handle the real thing. At 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. I hadn't heard it ring. The voicemail was from Caroline, left at 1:53 a.m. Her voice was slightly slurred, maybe from wine or maybe from exhaustion. "James," she said, and there was something broken in her voice. "I know you think I'm the enemy. I know you hate me right now. But I'm about to prove at Grandma's party that you're the fraud everyone thinks you are. I have the full investigation report. All of it. It shows you have no real business, no real clients, that you've been lying about everything. I'm going to read it out loud to the whole family. Mom, Dad, Grandma, everyone. Uncle Richard, Aunt Linda, all the cousins. You'll finally be exposed for what you are. This is for your own good, James. You need to stop lying and face reality." She laughed, a bitter, awful sound. Then she hung up. I played the voicemail again. Then again. Caroline had no idea. She genuinely believed the investigators had found evidence against me. She thought she was moments away from her triumph. She was going to walk into that party believing she held all the power, and she was going to discover that her own world was about to collapse. I made a decision then. I would go to the party. I would let Caroline try to humiliate me, because the truth was going to come out anyway, and it would be better for everyone to hear it all at once rather than in whispered rumors and second-hand stories. Justice was coming for my sister, and as much as it hurt, I knew it had to happen. The next morning, I contacted Janet Reeves. Her assistant put me through to her directly. Janet's voice was calm, professional. "Mr. Whitman, I'm glad you reached out. I wanted to speak with you about the situation. I'm planning to attend my grandmother's party," I said. "Caroline invited you to present your findings there, didn't she?" "She did. We were planning to attend and inform her that WED terminated the contract, but not to present any findings related to you. However, given what we discovered, I felt law enforcement should be present. Law enforcement is involved. As of yesterday morning, I contacted the Seattle Police Department's Economic Crimes Unit. 2 detectives have been assigned to your sister's case. They've been building it for several weeks now, coordinating with the state licensing investigators. Your grandmother's party may be an appropriate venue for them to act." My stomach twisted. "You want them to arrest her at the party?" Janet's voice softened. "I understand. This is your family, Mr. Whitman. But your sister has been planning to publicly humiliate you at that same party. She's shown no remorse for the people she's stolen from. One of her victims, Hank Nguyen, was contacted by police, and he mentioned that your sister had told him she'd be at a family party this weekend and was looking forward to it." I closed my eyes. "Who are the detectives?" "Daniel Wright and Nicole Brennan. They're experienced with financial crimes. I can have them contact you if you'd like." "Yes, please." An hour later, Detective Daniel Wright called me. His voice was gravelly, like he'd been a smoker once and quit, but the damage remained. "Mr. Whitman, I understand this is a difficult situation. Let me be direct. Your sister has stolen a substantial amount of money from vulnerable people. We have enough evidence for an arrest warrant. We were planning to pick her up at her home, but given that she's attending a family event and has been openly discussing it with multiple people, including potential witnesses, we believe it's an appropriate venue." "Will it be a scene?" I asked. "My grandmother is 80 years old. She has a heart condition." "Well, be as discreet as possible," Detective Wright said. "But your sister has made this public by planning her own presentation at the party. In a way, she's chosen this venue herself." He had a point. Caroline had decided to make Grandma's party a stage. She just didn't know who the real star of the show was going to be. I met with both detectives and Janet Reeves the day before the party at a coffee shop in Portland. Detective Nicole Brennan was younger than her partner, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an empathetic manner. She showed me the arrest warrant, issued that morning. Multiple counts of wire fraud, theft by deception, and forgery. Each count carried potential prison time. Combined, Caroline could be facing years in prison. "We've been in contact with several of her victims," Detective Brennan said. "They deserve justice. One woman, Dorothy Stevens, is 73 years old. She and her husband saved for years to invest in what they thought was a safe property deal. Your sister took their money and spent it on car payments and vacations. I felt ill. I didn't know she was capable of this. Family members rarely do," Detective Wright said. "White-collar criminals often lead double lives. They can be charming, successful in public, while engaging in fraud behind the scenes." I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Does this really need to happen at my grandmother's party? Can't you wait until the day after?" Detective Brennan looked at me with something like sympathy. "Your sister contacted Hank Nguyen, one of her victims, 3 days ago. She called him, asking if he was still interested in commercial properties. She tried to sell him another fake deal. Mr. Whitman, Your sister is actively continuing to defraud people. We can't wait. So it was decided. The detectives would attend the party, dressed professionally but not in uniform. They'd wait for Caroline to make her presentation. Then they'd act. Janet Reeves would be there too, to explain what her investigation had actually found. It would all come out at once. The truth about me, the truth about Caroline, everything. I called my mother and told her vaguely that something serious was going to happen at the party involving Caroline. What do you mean? Her voice rose in panic. James, what's happening? I can't explain yet, Mom, but I need you to trust me. And I need you to make sure Grandma is sitting down, maybe with someone close to her, during the party. Aunt Linda or someone. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But this has to happen. I also called my father in California. We hadn't spoken much since Head remarried and started a new family. But he deserved to know. Dad, something's going to happen at Grandma Helen's party. It's about Caroline. It's serious. Legal serious. There was a long silence. What did she do? I can't say yet. But it's bad. Just be prepared. Should I not come? No. Come. She's your mother. And Caroline will need family, even if she doesn't deserve it. The night before the party, Amy and I sat together on our couch. She held my hand. Are you okay? She asked. No, I said honestly. My sister is about to be arrested in front of our entire family. My grandmother's 80th birthday is going to be remembered as the day her granddaughter got taken away in handcuffs. Nothing about this is okay. But you didn't cause this. Caroline caused this. I know, but it still hurts. We sat in silence. Then Amy said, You know, what's amazing? Through all of this, your business kept growing. You didn't let her destroy you. You're stronger than you think, James. I hoped she was right. The morning of the party, I woke up to a text from Caroline. It was sent at 7:30 a.m., which meant she'd been awake early, probably rehearsing her big moment. The text read, Can't wait for today. I hired a videographer to record my presentation about your fake business. It's going to be on social media by tonight. Everyone will know what a liar you are. You should probably just not come and save yourself the embarrassment. But I hope you do come. I want to see your face when the truth comes out. I showed the text to Detective Wright, who had been communicating with by phone. He replied immediately, Let her dig her own grave. Don't respond. Just come to the party as planned. So I didn't respond. I got dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt, something respectful for a grandmother's birthday party. Amy wore a blue dress. We drove to the community hall in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. I was about to watch my sister's life fall apart, and as much as Shed tried to destroy me, as much as she deserved what was coming, part of me still wished there was another way. But there wasn't. The victims deserved justice. The truth had to come out. And Caroline had chosen this path herself, step by step, lie by lie, stolen dollar by stolen dollar. When we pulled into the parking lot, I saw Caroline's BMW already there, shining in the late morning sun. It was time. The community hall had been transformed. Balloons in silver and gold. Photos of Grandma Helen covering one entire wall, chronicling 80 years of life. Tables with white tablecloths. A cake shaped like a garden, decorated with sugar flowers. About 45 people were there when Amy and I arrived. Family members I hadn't seen in months. Uncle Richard and Aunt Linda. My cousin Brian with his girlfriend. Neighbors from Grandma's street. Old friends from her church. Everyone smiling, talking, celebrating. And Caroline, in the center of it all, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my rent. Her hair perfect. Her makeup flawless. She was laughing with Aunt Linda, holding a glass of champagne, playing the role of the successful, caring granddaughter. She saw me walk in. Our eyes met across the room. Her smile turned cold and sharp, triumphant. She thought she was about to win. I walked over to Grandma Helen, who was sitting in a cushioned chair near the cake table. She was small, 80 years old, her silver hair and soft curls, her eyes warm and gentle behind her glasses. Shed always been the heart of our family, the one who held us together after my parents' divorce, who remembered everyone's birthdays, who sent cards and made phone calls, and told us she loved us. She hugged me tightly. James, my sweet boy, I'm so happy you're here. Happy birthday, Grandma. I love you. She held my face in her hands, studying me. You look worried. Is everything all right? I tried to smile. It will be, I promise. She looked past me toward Caroline, then back to me. Her expression was sad. I don't know what's happening between you two, but your family, your brother and sister, that has to mean something. It does mean something, Grandma. It means we tell each other the truth, even when it hurts. She squeezed my hand. The first hour of the party was normal. We ate finger foods and cake. People shared stories about Grandma Helen's life. My mother told a story about how Grandma used to make Halloween costumes by hand for all the grandkids. Uncle Richard talked about how Shed taught him to fish when he was 8 years old. It was sweet and normal, and everything a birthday party should be. But I kept watching the door. Janet Reeves and the detectives were supposed to arrive around noon. It was 11:45. Caroline kept looking at her phone, checking the time, smiling to herself. At 11:50, Janet Reeves and her colleague David Park walked in. They were dressed in business casual, carrying a folder. They looked like ordinary guests, except for the serious expressions on their faces. Caroline saw them, and her face lit up. She actually clapped her hands together once, like a child on Christmas morning. At 11:55, Detectives Daniel Wright and Nicole Brennan entered. They wore jackets despite the warm day, probably to conceal their badges and weapons. They stood near the back of the hall, observing. At exactly noon, Caroline stood up and clinked a spoon against her champagne glass. The room quieted. Everyone turned to look at her. "Hi, everyone," she said, her voice bright and confident. "I know we're here to celebrate Grandma Helen, and we will, but I need to take a moment to address something important. Something about family honesty and accountability." My mother's face went pale. My father shifted uncomfortably. Grandma Helen looked confused. Caroline continued. "For the past 6 months, my brother James has been telling everyone that he quit his job to start a business. A tech startup, he called it. Very impressive sounding. But something never felt right to me. His story had holes. He was secretive, evasive. So, because I love this family, because I care about all of you, I did something difficult. I hired professional investigators to find out the truth." She gestured dramatically toward Janet Reeves. "These investigators have prepared a comprehensive report. James has been lying to all of us. He has no real business, has been deceiving this family for months, and I think we all deserve to know why." The room was completely silent. People stared at me. I felt Amy's hand slip into mine. Caroline looked at Janet Reeves expectantly. "Please, share your findings." Janet Reeves walked slowly to the front of the room. Her face was calm, unreadable. David Park stayed near the door. The detectives moved slightly closer, positioning themselves strategically. Janet said, in a clear, measured voice, "I'm afraid there's been a significant development in our investigation." Caroline's confident smile flickered slightly. "Yes, exactly. Tell them what James has been hiding." Janet turned to look at Caroline directly. "Miss Whitman, I'm not talking about your brother. I'm talking about you." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Caroline's face went white, then flushed red. "What are you talking about? I hired you to investigate him, not me." Janet opened her folder. "During the course of our investigation, we perform routine background checks on our clients. It's standard procedure to verify payment ability and ensure we're not being used as part of a fraud scheme. When we ran your background check, Miss Whitman, we discovered evidence of serious financial crimes." "That's ridiculous," Caroline said, her voice rising. "This is some kind of mistake." "It's not a mistake." Janet began reading from the report. "Over the past 18 months, you have fraudulently represented yourself as the authorized agent for commercial real estate properties you had no legal right to sell. You collected good faith deposits from at least 11 victims, totaling over $170,000. These deposits were never placed in legitimate escrow accounts. The properties were either already sold, didn't exist, or you had no authority to represent them." Caroline started to say something, but no words came out. Janet continued, her voice steady and damning. "One victim, Hank Nguyen, paid you $15,000 for a commercial kitchen space that was never available. Dorothy and Paul Stevens paid you $12,000 for an industrial warehouse that didn't exist. You created fake contracts with forged signatures. You fabricated LLC names. You committed wire fraud, theft by deception, and forgery. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. People turned to look at each other, then at Caroline, then at me. Caroline's face was scarlet. "You're lying. This is insane. You're making this up." She spun toward me, her finger pointing, shaking. "You paid them to say this. You set this up. This is revenge because I was about to expose you." Before I could respond, Detective Daniel Wright stepped forward. He held up his badge. "Caroline Whitman, I'm Detective Daniel Wright with the Seattle Police Department Economic Crimes Unit. We have a warrant for your arrest." The room went completely silent. Caroline shook her head violently. No. This isn't real. This is a setup. James planned this. Has the criminal, not me." Detective Nicole Brennan approached from the other side. "Miss Whitman, we need you to come with us." My mother stood up, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Caroline, stop. Please stop." Caroline turned to our mother. "Mom, you have to believe me. James did this. Hess framing me." But my mother's face crumbled. She said, her voice shaking, "Last month, my friend Susan told me you took $10,000 from her brother for a property deal that never happened. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there had to be an explanation. But I knew, deep down, I knew something was wrong." Caroline stared at our mother, her mouth open. She looked around the room, seeking allies, finding only shocked, horrified faces. Aunt Linda spoke up, her voice sad. "Caroline, you tried to get my son to invest $20,000 in a property last year. He called me asking if it seemed legitimate. I told him to be careful. I had a bad feeling then." Other people nodded, whispered to each other. The truth was spreading through the room like wildfire. People had suspected. People had known something was wrong. The videographer Shed hired stood in the corner, camera still rolling, capturing everything. Not the triumphant exposure of her lying brother, but her own arrest, her own fall. As they walked her out, Caroline looked back once at Grandma Helen. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice broken. "Grandma, I'm so sorry." Grandma Helen just sat in her chair, her small hands gripping the armrests, tears sliding silently down her wrinkled cheeks. The door closed. Caroline was gone. The party, if it could still be called that, erupted in chaos. People talking over each other, asking questions, crying, hugging. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing. My father stood frozen, his face gray. Janet Reeves approached me. "Mr. Whitman, I apologize for the trauma this has caused your family, but your sister gave us no choice." "I know," I said. "Thank you for telling me the truth." She nodded and left with David Park. I walked over to Grandma Helen. She looked up at me with eyes full of pain and love. "James," she whispered, "what happened to her? What happened to my Caroline?" I knelt beside her chair and took her hand. "I don't know, Grandma, but she needs help, and she's going to get it, even if it's not the way any of us wanted." She pulled me close and held me. This tiny woman who had lived 80 years and never imagined she'd see one of her grandchildren arrested at her birthday party. "I'm proud of you," she whispered into my ear. "You stayed true, even when it was hard. That takes courage." I started to cry then, all the stress and fear and sadness of the past 6 months pouring out of me. Amy came and wrapped her arms around both of us. My mother joined us, then my father. We stood there, this broken family, holding each other in the ruins of a birthday party that should have been joyful. Eventually, people started to leave. They hugged Grandma Helen, told her they loved her, promised to call later. The community hall emptied slowly. I stayed until the end, helping clean up, throwing away paper plates, taking down balloons, packing up leftover cake. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Lawyers, court dates, the legal process. But tonight, I just wanted to be with my grandmother, to make sure she knew she was loved, that this wasn't her fault, that families survive even the worst betrayals. As I carried a box of decorations to my car, I saw the video camera the videographer had left behind in the chaos. She must have forgotten it. I picked it up, wondering if I should watch the footage. The moment Caroline's world collapsed, captured in digital memory, I decided not to. Some things don't need to be preserved. Some things are better left to fade with time. I drove home with Amy beside me, exhausted and sad and somehow lighter than I'd felt in months. The truth was finally out, and now we could all begin to heal. The party ended in chaos, but Grandma Helen asked me to stay behind after everyone else had filtered out. We sat together in a quiet corner of the community hall, the remnants of her 80th birthday celebration scattered around us. Half-eaten cake, deflated balloons, a silence that felt both heavy and healing. She held my hand in both of hers, her skin paper-thin and warm. "James," she said, her voice steady despite what Shed just witnessed, "I want you to know something. I'm proud of you, not because you were right about Caroline, but because through all of this, you didn't become cruel. You could have gloated, you could have been vindictive, but you just stayed true to yourself. Grandma, I'm sorry your birthday was ruined." She shook her head. "My birthday isn't ruined. It's just different than I expected. The truth came out today. That's painful, but it's also necessary. Caroline needed to be stopped before she hurt more people." "Do you hate her?" I asked, the question coming out before I could stop it. "Hate her?" Grandma Helen looked shocked. "James, she's my granddaughter. I love her. I'm heartbroken for her, and for the people she hurt. But hate? Never. Love doesn't work that way, sweetheart. Love means you tell the truth, even when it hurts. You did that today. So did those investigators. So did those police officers. Everyone who spoke the truth today was acting out of love, not hate. I hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right." My mother approached us, her eyes swollen from crying. She'd been talking with my father in another corner of the hall. She sat down beside me. "James, I owe you an apology. I should have defended you from the beginning. I should have told Caroline to stop. Instead, I let her tear you down because I was too scared to confront her." Her voice broke. "I'm your mother. I should have protected you. Mom, you didn't know what she was really doing, but I knew she was treating you badly. That should have been enough." She took a shaky breath. "I talked to your father. We're going to support Caroline through the legal process, but we're also going to make sure she gets help. Real help. Therapy. Whatever she needs. This can't just be about punishment. She's sick, James. Emotionally sick. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it." I hugged my mother. "I love you, Mom. I love you too. I'm so sorry." In the weeks that followed, the legal machinery ground forward. Caroline was formally charged with 11 counts of fraud. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, testimony from victims. Her lawyer advised her to accept a plea deal rather than go to trial. The plea deal was 4 years in prison, full restitution to all victims, though Shed already spent most of the money, and permanent revocation of her real estate license. Caroline took the deal. I attended her sentencing hearing 2 months later. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, filled with victims and their families. Hank Nguyen sat in the front row, his face impassive. Dorothy and Paul Stevens, the elderly couple Shed defrauded, held hands and cried quietly. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, asked if anyone wanted to make a statement. Several victims spoke about how Caroline's fraud had devastated them financially and emotionally. Their words were painful to hear. Then the judge looked at me. "Mr. Whitman, you're the defendant's brother. Do you wish to speak?" I stood up, my legs shaky. I hadn't planned to say anything, but suddenly I knew I needed to. "Your Honor, I don't want to minimize what my sister did. She hurt real people. She deserves to be held accountable. But I want to say something about who she is, or who she was before this. Caroline used to be the person in our family who organized birthday parties for our grandmother. She used to send care packages to our younger cousins in college. When our parents divorced, she was 16, and she helped take care of me when I was 12. She wasn't always this person." I paused, trying to find the right words. "I think Caroline got lost somewhere. She became so obsessed with looking successful that she forgot how to actually be successful. She was terrified of failure, so she created a fake version of success, and once she started lying, she couldn't stop. Each lie required another lie to cover it up. It became a spiral. I'm not asking for leniency. I'm just asking that while she's being punished, someone also helps her figure out how she got here, because I don't want her to come out of prison and make the same mistakes again. The judge nodded. Thank you, Mr. Whitman. That's noted for the record. Caroline's lawyer read a letter from her. She'd written it from jail, where she'd been held since her arrest. The letter said, I know I hurt so many people. I stole from hardworking individuals who trusted me. I blamed my brother for my own failures. I lied to my family. I was jealous of Jameis' courage to start his own business because it was something I'd always been too afraid to do. When he actually took that risk, it made me feel like a coward. Instead of dealing with those feelings, I tried to destroy him. And when that wasn't enough, when my insecurity kept eating at me, I started stealing. I created a fake version of success because I couldn't handle the pressure of creating real success. I'm deeply sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. The judge sentenced Caroline to 4 years in prison as outlined in the plea deal. Caroline cried when the sentence was read. My mother cried. My father put his arm around my mother's shoulders. As the bailiff led Caroline away, she looked back at me one last time. I nodded at her. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. We were still siblings. That didn't go away just because she'd done terrible things. I visited Caroline in county jail once before her transfer to the state prison. The visiting room was gray and cold, separated by plexiglass. We spoke through phones, looking at each other through the barrier. She looked broken. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore an orange jumpsuit. Her eyes were hollow. Why did you come? She asked, her voice barely audible through the phone. Because you're my sister, I said simply. She started to cry. I wanted to prove you were failing because I was terrified you'd succeed and I'd be left behind. You were always the good one, James, the responsible one. I was supposed to be the successful one. That was my identity. When you risked everything to start your own business, it made me question everything about myself. Why hadn't I ever been that brave? Why was I still just coasting on other people's success? So you started stealing. No, it already started before you quit your job. That's the worst part. It'd been running scams for over a year. Your business just gave me a target for all my fear and anger. If I could prove you were a fraud, maybe I wouldn't feel like such a fraud myself. Caroline, you weren't a fraud at first. You were a good real estate agent. You made honest money, but it wasn't enough. I saw other agents driving better cars, closing bigger deals. I felt like I was falling behind. So I cut corners. Then I cut more corners. Then I just started lying completely. We sat in silence for a moment, connected by phone lines and separated by plexiglass and choices. I forgive you, I said finally. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger will just poison me the same way envy poisoned you. She pressed her hand against the plexiglass. I pressed mine against the other side, our palms separated by a 1/4 inch of bulletproof plastic. Use this time to figure out who you want to be, I told her, not who you think you should be, who you actually want to be. And when you get out, it'll be here. Why? She whispered. After everything I did. Because that's what family means. It doesn't mean we ignore the bad stuff. It means we face it together and try to be better. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. BuildTrack continued to grow. By the end of that year, I had 17 clients. Monthly recurring revenue had grown to $22,000. I hired 2 full-time employees, Marcus, who'd been with me part-time from the beginning, and a customer service specialist named Sarah who handled client communications. I launched a second product, budget tracking software specifically designed for small businesses. It integrated with BuildTrack, but could also be used independently. Within 3 months, I had 8 clients for the new software. Amy and I got engaged on a hiking trip in the Columbia River Gorge. We'd climbed to a viewpoint overlooking the river, the Oregon landscape stretching out in shades of green and gold. I got down on one knee right there, with no one around but us, and the hawks circling overhead. "You believed in me when no one else did," I said. "You stood by me through the worst time of my life. Will you stand by me for the rest of it?" She said yes, crying and laughing at the same time. I started a blog about entrepreneurship. I wrote honestly about failure, about family, about resilience. I told the whole story of what happened with Caroline, changing names to protect the victims, but being truthful about the emotional journey. One post went viral. I titled it, "My sister tried to destroy my business and destroyed herself. Instead, a story about envy and redemption." It got shared thousands of times. I received hundreds of emails from people who'd experienced similar family betrayals, similar struggles with jealousy and competition between siblings. Many people thanked me for being honest about forgiving Caroline. They said it gave them permission to consider forgiveness in their own lives, even when the wounds were deep. I realized that my experience, as painful as it had been, had given me something valuable, a platform to help others, and a perspective on what truly matters. Success isn't about defeating other people. It's about becoming the person you're meant to be. Grandma Helen passed away peacefully 2 years after her 80th birthday. She died in her sleep, at home, surrounded by photos of her family. The doctors said her heart simply stopped. She was 82. At her funeral, I gave the eulogy. I talked about unconditional love, about forgiveness, about second chances. I told stories about how Grandma Helen used to bake cookies with us when we were kids, how Shed taught me to tie my shoes and ride a bike, how Shed always had time to listen when I needed to talk. I also talked about the birthday party, about how Grandma had told me she was proud of me for staying true to myself even when it was hard. Grandma Helen taught us that love means telling the truth, I said from the pulpit, looking out at the gathered family and friends. She taught us that family can wound us deepest, but also has the power to heal us if we allow it. She taught us that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to believe that people can change, and giving them the space to do it. Caroline was granted permission to attend the funeral under guard supervision. She sat in the back row, handcuffed to a corrections officer, wearing civilian clothes they'd allowed her to change into. She cried through the entire service. After the funeral, at the cemetery, I stood with my family at Grandma Helen's grave. The casket had been lowered. People were beginning to leave, walking slowly back to their cars. Caroline approached me, the corrections officer staying a respectful few feet back. She and I stood together, looking at the fresh earth, the flowers people had placed around the headstone. "I wasted so much time hating you for being brave," Caroline said quietly. "And I almost wasted time hating you back," I replied. "But Grandma taught us better than that. Do you think she forgave me? For ruining her birthday party?" I thought about Grandma Helen's words to me that day, about how love means telling the truth even when it hurts, about how she could never hate her granddaughter. "Yes," I said. "I know she did. She told me so. She said you were sick, and she hoped you'd get well. She said she loved you. That never changed." Caroline broke down then, sobbing in a way I'd never seen her cry before. Not the angry, bitter crying from the party, not the desperate crying from the sentencing, but something deeper, something that sounded like genuine grief and genuine remorse. The corrections officer looked at me. I nodded. She let Caroline stand there a moment longer. "When you get out," I said, "come see me. Well, figure out what comes next. Together. You'd really do that? After everything? You're my sister. That doesn't change. What you did was terrible, but you're serving your time. You're making restitution. You're getting therapy. You're trying to change. That's all anyone can ask." She wiped her eyes. "I don't deserve you as a brother. Maybe not. But you're stuck with me anyway. That's how family works." The corrections officer touched Caroline's arm gently. It was time to go. Caroline hugged me, awkward with the handcuffs, then let herself be led back to the transport van. I stood at Grandma Helen's grave a while longer, just me in the afternoon sun and the quiet of the cemetery. I thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the betrayal, the vindication, the sadness, the forgiveness. I thought about how envy is poison that destroys the one who carries it, about how the person you're really competing against is the person you were yesterday, about how success isn't about looking impressive to other people. It's about being able to sleep at night knowing you did the right thing. Caroline had learned these lessons the hardest way possible. Prison time, lost career, broken reputation, but she was learning them. And maybe when she got out, she'd be the person she was always capable of being, before fear and insecurity twisted her into someone else. As for me, I'd learned something too. I'd learned that staying true to yourself, even when everyone doubts you, even when your own family turns against you, is the only real measure of success. I'd built a business, yes, but more importantly, I'd become someone I was proud to be. I built a company, but I learned that the person you're really competing against is the person you were yesterday. Caroline learned that lesson through loss and consequence. I learned it by watching her fall and choosing not to gloat, but to extend a hand when she was finally ready to take it. That's what Grandma would have wanted. And in the end, that's what made me feel like I had truly succeeded. Not the money, not the growing client list, not the viral blog post, but the fact that I'd gone through the fire and come out the other side, still believing in love, still believing in family, still believing that people can change if we give them the chance. Grandma Helen's funeral was on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I went back to work. I had client meetings, software bugs to fix, employees who depended on me. Life went on, but I carried those lessons with me, every day, in every decision I made. BuildTrack continued to grow. Eventually, Amy and I got married in a small ceremony overlooking the Pacific Ocean. My mother and father both came, standing together for the first time in years, united in happiness for their son. Caroline sent a letter from prison, saying she was sorry she couldn't be there but she was happy for us. She included a drawing shed made in an art therapy class, a simple sketch of two people holding hands. We framed it. 2 years into Caroline's sentence, she was granted early release for good behavior and completion of extensive therapy programs. She'd been a model prisoner, had gotten her GED equivalency in business ethics, and had been working with a prison counselor to address her psychological issues. When she got out, I was there to pick her up. She walked out of the prison facility looking smaller somehow, humbler, her eyes clear but cautious. We drove to a diner and had breakfast, pancakes and coffee. We talked about simple things at first, the weather, how Amy was doing, Mom's new apartment, Dad's retirement plans. Then Caroline said, "I've been offered a job as a bookkeeper at a nonprofit that helps low-income families with housing. It's entry-level, nothing glamorous, but it's honest work, and I want to do it." "That sounds perfect," I said. "He'll never be able to pay back all the restitution I owe. Not in full, but I'm going to try. Every paycheck, a portion goes to my victims. It'll take decades, but I'll do it." "I know you will." She looked at me, really looked at me. "Thank you for not giving up on me. I gave up on myself, but you didn't. That's what family does." I said simply, "Now, I want to leave you with a question. Have you ever dealt with jealousy or competition within your own family? Maybe a sibling, a cousin, someone close to you who saw your success as their failure? How did you handle it? Did you fight back? Or did you try to understand where they were coming from? Leave a comment below and share your story. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear from you. If this story touched you, if it made you think about forgiveness, family, or what real success means, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you want to hear more stories about resilience, redemption, and the complicated messiness of real life, subscribe to this channel. I share a new story every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone dealing with family conflict, or someone chasing success for the wrong reasons, or someone who needs to be reminded that people can change. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for being part of this community. I hope you walk away from this feeling a little more at peace, a little more willing to forgive, and a little more committed to becoming the best version of yourself. Not for anyone else's approval, but for your own sense of integrity. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, the only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday.